Faith in love starts with faith in you. Know yourself to grow yourself. And discover the DNA of love with Dr. Williams every Wednesday at 4 p.m.
Today, we're talking the DNA of partner selection. So, what does that actually mean, the partner selection, before we dive more into it?
So dating is a thing in itself, and it's a thing that people tend to view casually. Mm-hmm. When I talk about partner selection, like how to find the person that you are actually going to hitch your wagon to at some point, like your actual partner, like not just in the colloquial sense of the word, when we're talking about like modernized, like, oh, this is the person that I've been dating for 7 or 8 months and we are looking potentially partner status, but we don't know. Mm-hmm. Like how to actually navigate those waters initially so you're not so long in that weird stage of like, well, this can go either one way or the other. Anyone who's ever been dating someone who's felt like they were in like a rut where it's like, I'm with somebody, it's better than being alone, but this ain't it. Like that's a tough place to be. So my goal is to try to help navigate for singles. If we can help you avoid that phase altogether, yeah, cool. And if you're with somebody, unfortunately, hopefully they're not listening. But you might be the person that someone else is thinking about too. But like finding a way where if you're out of those situations, finally you're able to not repeat the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm. So I know we have a few questions to tackle in that category. The first one, right, is like you said, dating within reason. So what does that mean, and what should we be looking for?
So there's a lot of human nature requires us to reach for things that are sometimes out of our reach. So I'm 32. I still think I'm gonna make it to the NBA. I got time. Like, even though 1 ACL, yeah, 2 meniscuses later, like I'm pretty confident. Yeah, drafted 2027. Here I come. I'll be the first geriatric NBA player. We reach for things that are sometimes out of our reach, and doesn't necessarily mean the things that are out of our reach because we're not worthy of them or we're not valuable, or the things that we're reaching for are not worthy of reaching out to get. But sometimes we reach for things so they look good because they like are potentially appealing in the moment. Mm-hmm. We don't look at them from a long-term standpoint. So a strong analogy is like food. Like so many of us, we date the same way we shop for groceries. Like we go to the store when we're hungry.
Yeah.
And we need something. And like after a while you realize that the food that you got that helps sustain you in the moment,
it's not
just a regular box of Cheez-Its. That was cool in the moment, like, but after a while it's like, thought these crackers were special and they just crackers.
They're just crackers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what advice would you give people then, or how would you direct them of like to make those kind of directions of how do I know what I'm looking for? How do I know to not go shopping when I'm hungry?
Well, that's a great question. The first part of that is actually dealing with your own personal hang-ups first. Mm-hmm. So we're talking like from a mental health perspective, the things that are hindering you in any way, shape, or form from having or building your own sense of self and sense of security as a person with self-esteem. Once you do all that, which is obviously that's like part 1 of this movie, but once you're able to do that, like cool, let's check that box. Then we move on to sort of looking at our realistic parameters for like what we're trying to accomplish in our dating environment. So we're looking at physical aesthetics for sure, personal values, and degree of investment in the relationship or the idea of a relationship altogether. So if you start with these, they're not necessarily the end all be all, but they put you in a position where I'm already thinking about my potential romantic partners in a way that's like compatibility based versus like this idea of like random swinging in the dark potentially. Physical aesthetics are important and people don't talk about them enough. Oftentimes you like, can't speak for anyone else, but like when I was in college and like even like single and dating, if you talked about somebody based on like how you thought they looked, like oftentimes I was treated like I'm a bad person for
I feel like for some reason it has gotten that negative, like, oh, they just look good, that's all they have to them is that they look good, or oh, you only like this, where it's like, It is an important aspect. Like, I feel like I should be attracted to the person I'm attracted to.
Your looks are not all I want unless that's all you have to offer.
Right.
Like, if you're only bringing looks to the table, then cool. Like, go be a mannequin. But if you're actually trying to bring something to the table as the person, like, being perceived by other people, like, your looks are part of what gets the foot in the door. Like, it's part of what pulls someone's attention and grabs their eye. Now, granted, like, looks are fantastic, just like the way, like, grocery shopping, certain foods look good.
Sometimes Cheez-Its look really good.
Yeah, unless you're lactose intolerant. And you're grabbing a bottle of milk. Like, in these situations, like, it might have looked good on TVs with cookies and Chips Ahoy, but knowing yourself and knowing your situation. So physical aesthetics, when I say physical looks, I'm not just talking about like how a person appears, like from a genetic structure standpoint, like symmetry in the face, etc. Like the things that make a person like traditionally attractive. I'm talking about everything. So the way they look, their physical appearance from the neck down, like how are they dressed, their style, the sounds of their voice, the sound of their laugh. Can you imagine how many relationships like go into a dark place because of the tiny rock in the shoe being their laugh is annoying?
I feel like I've seen a lot of comedy skits about that, like on SNL or something, just like, oh, they're the perfect package, and then the laugh is like, ha 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 ha, type of thing.
The sound of a voice, like I remember there was a person who I went on just a single date with, and I was actually like, I was excited her name was Cynthia. I won't say her last name, just in case, like, again, she's out there. But when I was on a date with this girl named Cynthia from my college when I was like, I think I was like 20. And Cynthia she was beautiful based on my own personal standards. Like, not, like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Right. I thought she was stunning. I hated her voice. I really did. Like, not what she was saying. We actually had interesting conversations, but initially I was like, well, I think she's attractive, she's fun, she's interesting, and I think she feels the same way about me. And why don't I like this person? What's the hang up here? And for me at the time, it was like, I thought her voice was annoying. To me it was like nails on a chalkboard. And it got worse the more excited she got. And then, like, she had a laugh that was like kind of a baritone laugh, and she was like small. So someone small with a deep laugh, like, kind of startled me. Every time I said something funny, it's like, ooh.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, it's like, who's the dude sitting behind you voicing over your body? Like, this is crazy. So in those moments, like, I look back and I think, like, hey, I was right to feel the way I felt, and there was nothing wrong with her. Both are true. I was right to feel like we weren't compatible because we just weren't.
Because, like you said too, in that's gonna be the hang-up later on. If you were to have pursued a relationship, that's gonna be the hang-up. Like, you're now spending your entire time with this person, and you don't even want to really talk to them because you don't like the sound of their voice, type of thing. Like, that's not a good thing to go into a relationship with. Yeah. Hold that thought.
Yeah, leave notes around the house. A big one too is hygiene. So based on just physical aesthetics, we can look at someone and see a lot about a person based on how they present themselves. And so many relationships, like, hygiene becomes an issue down the road, but you can tell a lot by the way a person presents themselves as well. And like, for me, back in the day, I found certain images of a human's face and a human's body to be beautiful. But what really struck me as attractive, at least in my early 20s, even still so now, is the idea of, like, elegant beauty or classy beauty. So someone who can be, like, historically or traditionally, like, can I say the S word on the air?
Maybe, yeah.
Sexy.
Yeah.
So, that S word, by the way.
I was like,
but yeah, people who were traditionally, like, sexy, but they did it in a way that was classy at the same time. Like, you know, like,
how to carry yourself.
Yes. And for me, it wasn't even about just a look. It was the idea that this person put thought into their physical aesthetics beyond just, like, the low hanging fruit of like certain body parts being visible versus others.
So like you said, that's getting in the door, right? Like, okay, I'm attracted to you. And then how do you get into that point of we have the personal values and the degree of investment?
So the degree of investment is important. It's huge because you got to ask yourself, like, okay, am I really in a position in my life where I want to even be dating in the first place? Because some of us date out of habit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you ever seen somebody in high school who's like perpetually dating someone?
Like, oh, they're in another relationship?
Yeah.
Weren't you just dating Johnny?
Yeah, aren't you still dating Johnny? Like, there's so many situations where it's like people date because it's like just a habit. So it's like stress eating.
Mm-hmm. Or like you said, like, I don't really want to be alone.
Yes. And if you don't want to be alone, you got to ask yourself, well, why? What part of your past history throughout dating, family, or otherwise have you been placed in a position where being alone is so dangerous?
Mm-hmm.
And if you are dating someone so you don't feel alone, that puts you in a very like precarious position. Because now if, let's say, a person knows that you're dating them so you're not alone, now it puts them in a situation where they can potentially control the outcome of the relationship because they know, well,
you're not going to leave me.
Yeah. And the outcome typically in those situations is some form of unevenness when it comes to the power dynamic of the relationship itself. Because, again, like you said, if I know you're not going to leave me no matter what, imagine what I can get away with.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why there's so much infidelity. Everyone who's cheated on don't leave the person who cheated. And unfortunately, we all have our different reasons, but like for the person who's potentially doing the cheating, we're reinforcing that they can just get away with whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So before you're in that situation, hopefully you actually define like clearly what my degree of investment is. Like, am I just dating for fun? Have I been comfortable with being alone to a point where I'm good with that. I'm not afraid of it anymore. Now I'm okay with the idea of pursuing a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm doing so, what does it even look like? Am I just going out to bars or parties? Which is fine, but you're only going to meet people who go to bars and parties.
Right.
And
that physical attraction, not
there you go. Personal values.
Okay.
So personal values in the context of human culture, from not just like where you're from or like where your family background is, but like what your culture is around your own existence, your own house, like things you find funny, the things you find enjoyable. One category. Then you have the idea of like religion, which is a big one. Like if religion is a strong factor for you, like sometimes a relationship will not stand the test of time when there's a dissonance between my religion and that person's religion. And then trust. Like I say it every week and I'll keep saying it, you must define love. Like if you can't define trust and you don't know what trust even looks like and you hope to trust people, you are in a bad spot. You are struggling to now understand trust while actually trying to engage in trust, which again puts you in a position where if you don't know what trust looks like, it can be violated pretty frequently. So not to end on a negative note, but like for sure, if you're able to wrap your head around these sort of ideas before you even think about trying to date and find that partner, you put yourself in a better position for when you're actually meeting the love of your life, who's, by the way, not operating on your schedule. So like I've said in previous episodes, like you got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You got a 30-second window to be compelling and real and respectful to somebody who's potentially there and ready for you.
Awesome. Well, the next thing, right, is diversifying your type. So first, I feel like we always hear like, oh, what's your type? Is he your type? Are they your type? Like, so what does that even mean? And then what do you mean by diversify your type?
Most people don't know.
Okay, good answer. Okay, next song.
Most people have no idea. Most people truly think about it. How often do people actually sit down and think about their type? Or actually know what it looks like before they see it? People don't have the time. We're busy and we have stuff going on. What people do instead is we get really good at recognizing what we think is our type when we see it in other people. So then we feel like, oh, I know my type because all the people I date end up looking the same. And it's like, well, if that's the case, then A, it's really boring. And then B, like, if they all look the same and act the same, like, then why even date different people? Why even try to explore? If you're going to basically find the same version of the same, like, this basically, I'm going to date myself with this reference, but it's like Doug Funny's closet. Like, all his outfits look the same. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. You might as well blindly reach into the closet and pull something out.
Same person, different font. Like,
And then you feel like, well, how come I keep running into the same issues when I'm dating people? And it's like, well, everywhere I go, there I am. Like, it's the same person over and over and over because you never diversified. And I don't mean just like cast an extremely wide net and pull in everything. I mean, define it first and then recognize, okay, well, what is my type? And then be willing to loosen up some of the parameters that you might have had before. So obviously, like, And also, like, if you do have a type and you're adamant about it, like, okay, this is my type and this is the kind of person I want to be with, like, has it helped? Are you still working and trying to find your love? And if you are, then your type might not be it.
Yeah, might not be your type. Might not be it.
And it might be familiar, which is why people do the things we do. We gravitate to what's familiar, but familiar doesn't always mean compatible or effective. Like, by all means, like, growing up, holes in my shoes was familiar, but I can't play basketball like that. Like, I was
doesn't mean it was good for you. Like.
Yeah, like, I was familiar with being on welfare. Like, but there's nothing wrong with being on welfare. So it kept me fed for like almost 13, 14 years of my life. But is it something that I want to be sustaining me for the next 40, 50 years? No. Like, I want something better for myself. And in relationships, it's the same thing. Like, finding something better for yourself is like important, but it doesn't happen by accident. So diversifying so take out physical appearance. Like, if you have a type, so many of us feel like we have a type when it comes to physical appearance. Ask yourself, truly, have I ever dated anyone who looks like different than the last 10 or 10, maybe 15, maybe 20 people? Who knows, depending on how old you are or how busy you've been. So I use myself for example. So I realized and I told you about this off the air, and I'm sorry to my wife, she asked me not to tell it, but it's true. Like, I'll tell this story for sure, because it happened to me. So I was on the train when I was like in my 20s. I was on my way to class, and I see this girl sitting down. And she, by the way, if you listen every week, I spend a lot of time on the train. And this is for sure, like, true story. I won't use her name because this is a case that, we ended up not dating, so I don't want to put her out there like that. But, this girl was sitting down and she was like, just like minding her business. I pop on the train, I'm standing up with my bag. You know, I'm just kind of doing what you do on the train, just being scarce and like trying not to make eye contact with anybody. Right. Just do your own thing. So I see her sitting, and I go and sit like adjacent from her, like almost like semi across. Introduce myself, you know, hi, you know, my name is Deontay. Again, I saw you from a distance. She wanted to come over and say hi and see how your day was going. And she actually was like nice, and she was like, well, hi, I'm so and so, and then she gave me like attention, which I was like, wow, this is actually one of the moments where it's working. Like, I'm talking to this person, it's fun. I'm enjoying the conversation. And like we were both like laughing and joking and telling each other stories. I was a student, she was a student. We were both from the DC area. It was fun. And then her stop came, and then she grabbed 2 crutches. Like the kind of crutches that go from the wrist to the floor, like the dual wielding steel crutches. And she gets up, and she noticed my face, like, I wasn't rude, but like, I didn't know she had crutches.
You weren't expecting it.
No.
Right.
100%. And she laughed, and she was like, I have spina bifida. And I was like, what is spina bifida? Like, that's new to me. And I was like, and she was like, we had exchanged numbers already by that point, and she was like, well, I gotta go, and I don't have time to explain my stuff to you, so text me, and let's talk. And like, so I respect her so much because she had the grace and the maturity to like sit here with me being dumbfounded by her condition and like not like be turned off by it or like feel like I was being dismissive or rude. So she leaves, and like I'm sitting there on the train, and like I'm like kind of second guessing myself. I'm like, I thought she was beautiful. I still think she's beautiful, but why do I feel that internal like feeling of like wanting to change my perspective now, knowing that she has spina bifida? What's wrong? What's going on with me? Where I'm flipping.
That's your thought.
Yeah, it was kind of a gross thought. I was like, am I not going to go on a date with her now because she has spina bifida? Like, if so, then like, what am I bringing to the table that's so much better than like anyone who does or doesn't have an ailment? So I really challenged myself. I went home, and I actually not proud of this, but like I thought about like not texting her. I was like, I started talking to myself like, well, we can't go on walks. Like, I'm not trying to be silly, but like these are thoughts that I was thinking. Right. And if you've been listening, like all my dates are like
very active, yeah,
we walk. Yeah. So it was a legitimate concern. It was tough.
Yeah, but I feel like that's also, I mean, like, you know yourself that maybe, yes, for someone else, that is your type. Your type is that I can go out, we can do more active things. We're still hoping to go in the NBA. Like, you know, like, she was beautiful, she was nice, she was fun, but she just wasn't, she wasn't everything.
So I text her.
Well, hold on.
I was like, you know what? I wanted to do kind of what we're talking about here is like, I was like, I've been on all these dates between, and you're newly listening, between like a couple of years in my 20s, I went on around 44 dates to just basically do what I'm saying, like, to do here is diversify and try my best to find the person I'm supposed to be with. And I did so, and I was like, you know what? I've never been on a date with somebody with spina bifida or crutches. How do I not know that this is not going to be a great time? Mm-hmm. So I texted her, and she made fun of me. She was like, it took you long enough. Like, she had to really mull it over. She was like really funny. She teased me about it. And we ended up going on a date. We just like went to go get some food. We sat in the park and just kind of chilled and talked. And it was like, it was cool. But then we started talking about families, and like she told me that she wasn't going to be able to have children. And like it was probably one of the more, it's a fond memory because it was one of the more mature conversations I've ever had with someone. Mm-hmm. Where she was like, it was real talk. She was like, is that going to be a deal breaker? And I was like, yeah, kinda, because I want baby boys. Yeah. And my wife is listening. She knows I want a little baby Ella and baby Leaf. Those got names already picked out. And in this situation, she was actually really cool. And she was like, no, I've had spina bifida for a very long time. Like, it's not anything new to me. So it's a question that I want to make sure everyone's transparent on. I've asked it a million times. So by the time she got to me, she knew what her type was, and she was willing to basically put herself out there and to be like straight up with me, which in turn helped me be more honest to her, and it saved her from being with a person who like wasn't right for her, and it saved me from, you know, being in a circumstance where I couldn't have kids and I wasn't going to be happy long term. So that was.
Diversify. You know, that was a learning situation, which I feel like you said, I mean, not a lot of people are willing to put themselves in those positions, but both of y'all did, and I mean, you learned something. You learned it.
I put my money where my mouth is. Yeah. Like, I went on, anyone who's been in the DC area, they know that Nome Gallaudet is a train station that's like 2 or 3 stops after Silver Spring on the way into DC. So, same year, I'm on the train, and I see this girl, she comes on, and she has books in her hands, and I'm like, oh, another student. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna try this again, you know, and get the engine going. I walk over, say something very similar. I tried to be funny, like something charming, but really, really corny. I was like, hello, like, I did, like, my little Australian accent or something. Hi, how are you? Mm-hmm. And she doesn't respond. I'm like, is she rude? Like, I got up and I walked all the way over here, and I'm actually speaking my mind, like trying to like say hello, and she like didn't say anything, and I got discouraged. I was like, oh, like maybe it's me. Like, I don't know, I showered today. Like maybe I stink. Like, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, check my eyebrows, you know. And then she sees my reflection in the window, and then she turns around, and then she does a gesture to show that she's deaf. And like now I feel like a jerk because I realized that Nome Gallaudet is a stop for the University for the Deaf. Mm-hmm. So she was obviously getting on with her classmates and like heading home probably from class. But again, me trying to be open-minded and her like being willing to still talk to me even though like I made a complete like dunce out of myself. Like, she actually pulled out her notebook because I didn't understand sign language. She tried. And I was like, I'm from DC. You start throwing hands at me. I think some bad things are going to happen. So she gave it a shot. She pulled out a notebook and she wrote down like that she's a student. She actually like engaged with me like for the whole train ride, which was cool. I was like, and I literally sat next to her and we just kept writing back and forth on her notebook. And I was like, this was like nice. I'm getting to know her name is Amber. And like me and Amber, like we're actually getting to know each other, like writing on a notepad on the train. Mm-hmm. I mean, she ended up writing her number down and like started texting her. But this one, we actually quote unquote dated for like more than 1 or 2 days. It was like maybe like 3 or 4 weeks of like texting and talking because we could actually like communicate with each other when we were texting. Like the barrier didn't become a barrier until I was in person. Right. So we got to know each other from a distance, and I was like, this is dope. Like I'm feeling like I'm being open-minded. She's actually really cool, and like this is fun. Like getting to know her is awesome. So there's another situation that once we had like our second date, we realized that like writing on a piece of paper or sitting across from each other, texting each other, like where jokes are all delayed, like moments are missed, and like I didn't have the competence at the time for sign language, so I was slowing her up too. So we like again uniformly agreed that like this might be our last dinner. Mm-hmm. But in those moments, I learned like give myself a chance to find people who are not necessarily the type that I've been searching for. And those situations didn't work out, but I learned a lot about me, and I learned a lot about other people, and it renewed in many ways continue to reinforce my faith and love.
I feel like you kind of touched on what we're supposed to talk about next, like learning about yourself and those you date. What is, so like you were saying, discovering what you like, by counting what you don't like, and all these things. What else would you say in this segment are things that people should know? So
learning about yourself is a lifelong journey.
It is.
There's no person, if you meet someone who's like, I figured it out, like that person's a liar. Like, and get rid of them too. Like, they're not a friend. Like, that's a person who's not being honest, or they lack awareness. Like, if you don't know who you are and you're still figuring out, or you have an idea, even a strong idea, and you're still learning over time, like, embrace that. Like, lean into that. And this is my favorite phrases, but learn what you like by the things you don't like. The things you don't like can be really, really powerful. Because they draw a line in the sand. It's either like, definitely yes, or definitely no.
Right.
And if you can basically build even a list even of like the things you don't like in romantic context, not just like when you're fully in a relationship, like little things like, I used to, early on, I used to really, really hate when people laughed and then touched me. You know,
so like,
it's like, hey, Bubbles, give me my space. And that was such a petty, small thing, but I knew it from having it happen to me, and it was on the list of the things I don't like. I learned that about myself. I was like, I don't really like people just touching me. Like, I can be a part of your fun without being physically attached to you.
Yeah.
Like, let's laugh together, but don't reach for me, please. And in those moments, I'm like, in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, like, knowing what I didn't like at the time helped me build a capacity for, like, knowing my wife when I met her, like, this is the person.
Yeah.
Like, I've been searching for a long time, and this is her. Like, when she laughs, she don't touch me. Little things like
she's to herself.
She bubbles.
Yeah. She also likes her bubbles. Like.
Yep. And then the biggest is resisting a physiological temptation. So especially for young adults, like the temptation is to connect with people romantically, physically, because it feels good, and it does. Like to be honest, like intimacy feels awesome, especially when you're with somebody you actually care about, or just like in the evening, like, and they like you too. Like being liked and being close to someone on that level is really, really valuable. But if your reason for doing so is strictly because you were hungry and they just happen to be the cheeses on the shelf, then you have built yourself a problem, because at some point you're going to realize that I've eaten something that's giving me indigestion, so to speak. In this metaphor, so many of the items in the grocery store give a lot of us indigestion, and we work with this operating definition of like, well, no, once I eat it and vomit. And it's like, no, there's a way to find out what you like before actually just putting yourself or immersing yourself in a context with no way out.
Right.
That makes sense?
It makes sense, yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I feel like you said, it can be tempting, because, like you said, those physical connections do feel good, so it's just also knowing yourself enough to, like, now you know that you shouldn't be doing this, so, like, let's go home, type of thing.
Yeah, and then building off of that, knowing what you like to do outside of dating. Like, dating is cool, but, like, bring something more to the table than just a person who wants a body. Like, what do you enjoy? Like, what's actually important to you as a human, and then what actually enhances your own life? And then does the person I'm considering fall within those parameters? If they don't, like if I was a huge like Pokemon player, and then the person I'm dating hates Pokemon, they don't like the conventions, they don't like me dressing up, they don't like Pikachu, it's like, who can hate Pikachu? Like, I don't want to peek at you if you don't like Pikachu. And in those situations, like be comfortable knowing that, like, okay, I'm going to resist my internal motor to gravitate towards people for the sake of not being alone. I'm going to address my comfortable habits of just existing in context because they're convenient. I'm going to work really hard to make sure I'm picking up on any of these red flags where people are not fitting into these areas of my life that I find important. For lack of a better term, get rid of them. Mm-hmm. There's 8 billion of us. Mm-hmm. Like, there are a lot of matches out there. The love of your life is likely in existence with a doppelganger. So even if you struggle and you swing and miss and you had the love of your life at some other point, it's not over. Keep trying.
Keep trying. Okay, we're talking about, you've been on a few dates, or maybe you're still trying to get to know, actually picking that partner, selecting that person to be with. And something that we've talked about as, trying to get the door in, trying to be good at it, is that sense of humor. Because it is, like you said, it's a skill. Not everyone's going to be funny. You have to do it good. You got to know when to do it, how to do it. So what do you mean when it comes to the partner selection in terms of having that sense of humor?
So not hindering yourself by feeling like you have to be funny. Because like you said, there's a lot of people who are not funny. I know like hundreds of people throughout my life who are just like, they just don't have the talent to be like comical. Doesn't mean you don't have a strong sense of humor though. There's a lot of people who carry that, and it's a skill to be mastered. And when I say a skill to be mastered, recognizing that like dating doesn't have to be so serious. Like this idea of finding, if you're looking, the idea of finding the love of your life doesn't have to be this serious, aggressive pursuit of happiness like Kid Cudi. Like you definitely have an opportunity to do something cool. Treat it like a fun experiment. And when I say fun experiment, I'm not just talking about the colloquial sense of like experimenting with physical intimacy. I mean like experimenting with finding out who you are as a person and what you can. Like not to be morbid, but every one of us is finite. We're not going to be here forever. So take this opportunity to find a way to make yourself laugh through this process, because if not, what else are you doing it for?
Yeah.
Like we get with people to have fun with those people, and there's nobody who has fun without smiling. And if you do, it's probably a little weird.
A little weird.
Yeah. I mean, I can't, unless you don't have a mouth, but I mean, other than that, like, I don't know, like, give yourself an opportunity to actually enjoy the experience, because it's going to be a time limited one at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like you said, and like you were saying earlier too, you really got to know yourself, and that's something that I try to take from these, where I'm like, let me be the mini doctor of love to my friends. And like, if you just go out and, enjoy yourself, go have fun being you, then you're gonna draw those people in that are attracted to you for you, instead of like this facade that you're putting on. Or then you're gonna find people that are like, actually, you're having fun, you're enjoying yourself, you know what you like. So now you're gonna find someone just in the mix of it type of thing, instead of going on the hunt.
Yes, you stumble upon it, versus like this idea of like, I'm going to go find this person. Like
I'm going to the store, I'm hungry.
Yeah, like you can do that, and you're gonna end up with a bunch of groceries you can't afford. But like, if you do that, like, it's not necessarily going to be unsuccessful, but you put yourself in a situation where you're putting pressure on this idea of finding someone. And you inherently, when you put pressure on the idea of finding it, you build in a time standard. Which is why anxiety happens the longer we stay single. Because we build in this idea like, I have to find someone now. It's like, maybe the love of your life is like in Morocco right now. Like, maybe they're not available. Maybe they're somewhere back in the States. Maybe they're here potentially, and then you just haven't met them yet. We look at things in the parameters of our own living environment, but football coach used to say this to me when I was in high school, was like, the 6 inches in front of your face. That's all you can control. And that's all you should worry about, because that's all that's ever here in the moment anyway. The 6 inches in front of your face. Value that. And like, trust that it's not going to be here forever, so take advantage.
Sure.